welcome back to my channel. Today I filmed my full coverage foundation routine video for you guys. This is the full coverage I go for when I'm going out and I want to be a little extra. If you guys want to see my full coverage foundation routine, then please just keep on watching. So first things first, before foundation I always prime my skin. My go-to primer combination when I want a really long-lasting look, I'll go in with my Smashbox primer water, Laura Geller mattifying primer, and the Benefit Porefessional. 3 primers is a little bit extra. You guys don't have to use 3. I use these 3 different primers for 3 different reasons. I always apply the Smashbox water before the other primers. The reason I use this primer water when I want really long-lasting foundation, because once you spray it on your skin, you can feel your skin getting like that sticky feeling, and I like that because I feel like that'll make my foundation stick on better to my skin. After I go in with the primer water, I will go in with the Laura Geller mattifying primer. This primer is key for keeping myself matte. I'll apply this all over my face and on my forehead. I usually get oily in my T-zone, but sometimes over here as well, so I'll just apply this everywhere and just make sure it's really in my skin. The next primer I'll go in with is the Benefit Porefessional, and I use this strictly on my nose and my forehead, like this. This primer is really the best primer for blurring out your pores. It makes my skin feel so soft. Now that our skin is primed, I'm going to go in with the Becca Under Eye Brightening Concealer, and I'm going to use this to cancel out my dark circles. You guys see the difference already? This is the eye with the concealer, and this is the eye without. See how it brightened it? When I use this concealer, I go light-handed because it is a little bit on the thicker side. It does blend out nicely, but you don't want to cake up too much. Go in with a light hand at first, and if you feel like you need more, then you can build it up. Now I'm just going to take my beauty blender and just blend that out. Next thing I do is I'm going to go with the It's Bye Bye Under Eyes Concealer. This is going to go on top of my color corrector just to conceal that before foundation. I only use a little bit of product because this concealer is thick, and a little bit of this really goes a long way. Again, with my beauty blender, I'm just going to blend that out. Now this next step is something that I've been doing rather recently. I actually used to use a green color corrector on my scars, but the reason I don't anymore is because I feel like it would mix in with my foundation and stuff, and I would get like a little green tint, and I didn't like the way that looked. Obviously I didn't want to look green. What I started doing is I actually now put a light layer of concealer on my cheeks before foundation. I like to use the Tarte Shape Tape. The reason I use this concealer is because, number one, it is super full coverage and it blends out very weightlessly. So I'm just going to put more of this in the areas that my scars are more red. And that might look like a lot, but it's really not once I blend it out. It blends out into a really thin layer. And also, using your beauty blender is a good way to sheer out coverage and sheer out a product. You can already see the difference it made. Like, this is the cheek without, and this is the cheek with the concealer. And if I feel like I need a little more, I'll just go in again. If you're going to do this technique, I really recommend you using the Tarte Shape Tape. As you can see, it covers really well and it still remains lightweight, so that when we go in with our foundation, it's not too cakey. Okay, so far we've primed and concealed our face, and this is my base for foundation. It does seem like a lot to put concealer before foundation and then again after, but I really like to do it because it gives me a more even base for when I apply my foundation. This concealer trick actually in turn saves me foundation. It's easier for me to put foundation on and get even coverage without having to layer it on. So it saves me foundation as well as it saves me from looking super cakey. I'm going to be using the Wet n Wild Photo Focus Foundation along with the Tarte Double Duty Beauty Foundation. A super full coverage look. I like to combine them because this one gives you that youthful glowy skin while this one is matte. So the mix of them together is glowy but semi-matte. So I just really like the combination of them together, and they're both full coverage. I went ahead and mixed both of the foundations on the back of my hand, and I'm just gonna apply it to my face. Again, I'm blending out with my beauty blender. Always make sure to cover your ears, especially if you're going to be wearing your hair up. I always bring my foundation down my neck as well. Once I have an even layer of foundation blended out with my beauty blender, I like to go back in and add some more where I feel I need the extra coverage. I don't go back in with another full layer of foundation because that can make it super cakey. So I'll only go back in and I'll add more foundation to the areas that I feel like need more coverage. And this time, instead of going in with my beauty blender, I'll actually go in with a flat kabuki brush. And I like to do this because it adds more coverage than the beauty blender does. Now once more, I'll just go back in with my beauty blender and I will just pick up any excess product that didn't really blend well into the skin. Another reason I don't like to put on too much foundation is because we are going to go in with concealer, so that concealer is going to add a little bit more coverage. So you don't necessarily need 3 or 4 layers of foundation because your concealer will add extra coverage. I'm going in with the Tarte Shape Tape and the NARS Creamy Radiant Concealer. I literally just got concealer in my eyelash. Wow. I'm not going to set my concealer yet because I'm actually going to cream contour. That is something I really like to do when I'm going for a really glam look, long lasting, full coverage. Always go in with my LA Girl concealer in the shade Beautiful Bronze. First, put it around the perimeters of my forehead. And I come from the top of the hairline and lightly bring it down. Before I add product to this side of my face, I'm going to blend it out on this side just so that it doesn't dry down. And I'm just going to take my beauty blender and really blend that out. I'm going to add a little bit more to my forehead. I like to be super bronze, so sometimes it looks like I have a bronzer helmet, but I'm not going to lie, that's just my personal preference. If you ever feel like your cream contour looks a little bit too harsh, you can go back in with your beauty blender and just go over it to blend it in more. I'm going to use one last cream product before I set my face with all my powder. I'm going to use the Maybelline Master Strobing Stick, and this one is in the shade Iridescent. Can we just talk about for a second how much product they give you in this? Like, I'm just going to pick up the product, and I'm just going to go in and apply this to the high points of my cheek. Now that I'm done with all of my cream products, I'm going to go in and set my face. And to set my under eyes, I am using the Dermablend Loose Powder. No surprise there. Try to avoid putting powder over where you put the cream highlight, just so that it stays intense. Because I did apply cream products, I'm not going to set my face the same way I normally do. I'm going to use this powder to set all of the areas where you put foundation and or concealer. To bronze my skin and set that cream contour, I'm going to go in with Hoola bronzer right here. Contour, I'm going with my Shade and Light palette, and I'm going to use this shade right here. I'm going to clean up my contour with that same powder we used to set our face and just carve it out. I don't like to let the powder sit for too long, so I'm going to go ahead and dust it away. Now you can just see how carved out my cheek is. To brighten up my under eyes a little more, I'm going to go in with the NYX HD finishing powder in the shade Banana. And I'm just going to take this on my beauty blender. I'm just going to press this under my eyes. For my blush, I'm going to go in with Milani Luminoso. I'm going to go in with Urban Decay All Nighter Setting Spray to set my face. For highlight, I'm going to go in with my favorite glow kit, which is the Sun Dipped Glow Kit. And I'm going to go in with Summer and a little bit of Moonstone. I'm going to spray my face one more time. Last thing I'm going to do is actually a trick that I learned from Desi Perkins. She has an active breakout. She'll actually make it into a beauty mark, which I think is such a great idea. I'm not breaking out too bad right now, but I do have a little breakout here, so I'm just going to... and it becomes a beauty mark. And to do the beauty marks, I just use ColourPop's eyebrow gel in the shade Bangin' Brunettes. And that is how I do my full coverage foundation routine. I did kind of play myself because I lost some coverage around these areas because I did press too hard my beauty blender, so it did pick up a little bit product underneath. Of course, the day I go to film my full coverage foundation routine, I mess up and I lose coverage on my foundation. As you guys saw, I do have old acne scars and redness. So this is super full coverage in my opinion for my skin type. I'm a full coverage kind of girl most of the time. I don't usually cream contour and cream highlight on a regular basis. This type of makeup look is something that I usually do when I'm going out and I want to be fancy. I really hope you guys learned something from this video. If you enjoyed, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, comment, and don't forget to subscribe. All of the products I use will be listed down in the description box as always, as well as my social media handles. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I will see you guys in my next one.